young women and then they become women feel like it's okay to be clever.
Yeah, to be clever. Well, again, I mean, it's such a disappointment to me that we're still not there, because I even see with my kids, so my oldest is 7, and you know, she's a bright little poppet, but you see even now just the beginnings of that kind of taking the edge off that, you know, where you don't want to look like you're up yourself or, you know, more clever than other people, or it might be too threatening. Look, I think for me, it probably was a blessing and a curse in a way, being in a small environment, because being a big fish in a small pond, if you want to put it that way, it has its advantages, you know, because it had never occurred to me really until I went to uni that I wasn't smart. You know,
yeah,
like, it was kind of, I was always one of the kids who was doing well at school. There wasn't a lot of competition, not that it was full of dummies, I don't mean it like that, but it was small, you know, so it's not a big school with a lot of kids there. So I grew up, I guess, with a sense of myself as being clever, and, you know, I'm really grateful for that. I got a shock, I think, once I went into the big bad world and went, oh, there's lots of other clever people too, you know. I loved it, but it was also intimidating as well. I think probably most of that stuff came more from not necessarily my immediate family, but my family in general, and a kind of cultural context that didn't really value education that much. They kind of knew they were supposed to, but no one in my family had ever been to uni. You know, neither of my parents finished high school. They're both very bright people, but they weren't educated. And that's true of a lot of the, you know, cousins and aunties and uncles and whatever in my family as well. So I always had a sense, I was teased for how much I read, you know, and I knew that from a very young age, I knew that I should keep some things to myself, that I shouldn't challenge too much. All those kinds of things, which I think do hold a lot of working class kids back. That's as much about class, I think, as it is about gender. Because you don't want to look like, you know, you think you're better than everyone else, and that's very Australian too. And then you add being a girl onto that. Well, don't you know, the way we describe little girls who do that as bossy, you know, rather than, oh, she's got good leadership potential, hasn't she? Like, you see a young boy who puts his hand up and, you know, he's a bit of a know-it-all. It's kind of funny, you know, it's cute. Or he's like a little man. You see a little girl do that, I think we still use denigrating terms for it. How do we change it? I mean, I think it does come back to, it's too simplistic to say this, but role models has got to be part of it. Again, going back to Gillard, when you see the first female Prime Minister and how she was treated, it doesn't bode well for little girls who have leadership qualities. You know, or the fact that we still have so few women at CEO level, or, you know, on boards, in positions of authority, football coaches. Why have we never had a female AFL coach? You know, there's a lot of women who are really invested in football, who love football, who are a big part of the community. Is it because we wouldn't accept their authority? You know, I don't think we will change that until we change, you know, they've both got to change together, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.